Good day, everyone. Good day, ma'am. I am Faith Daod and I am the representative of Group 8 with the topic Universal Hypothesis. Universal Hypothesis with its parts, which is the proponents, language acquisition processes with its overview and processes, examples and criticisms. So, what is Universal Hypothesis? Universal hypothesis is a theoretical concept proposed by Noam Chomsky, not without criticisms or controversy from scholars in a specific community, that the human brains contain an innate mental grammar that helps humans acquire knowledge. Brain contains mechanisms referred to as language acquisition device, which states, separate from the faculties of cognitive activity, input is needed but only to trigger the operation of language acquisition device. Noam Chomsky is a linguistic professor at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology or MIT, known for his language acquisition device, which is a built-in box in the brain responsible for creating and learning the language. It also postulates in his theory that the language was created from genetic mutation. Good day, everyone. I am Faith Daod and I'll be discussing to you the proponents of universal grammar. Universal grammar was first conceptualized and introduced to the linguistics community in the 1960s by Noam Chomsky. He is a linguistics professor at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology or MIT. According to Chomsky's grammar theory, all humans are born with a natural ability to acquire, develop, and understand language. In order for this to occur, the three main principles of universal language, whereas universality, which also means all languages are similar at their core, convergence, humans can understand the similarities in language even if they are not exposed to the language, and of course the poverty of stimulus, which includes language cannot be learned purely through exposure. Thus, this principle must exist. Universal grammar theory is named for Noam Chomsky's belief that all languages structure, consistent with the laws of language, which is grammar, are universally recognized by humans during infancy. Chomsky also championed the idea that all languages could be learned at a young age, regardless of whether an individual is exposed to certain aspects of the language or not, because they are universally similar at their foundations. So he stated that at such a young age where a children is able to communicate, the child can learn the language and acquire those language within their surroundings. Let us now move on to innateness hypothesis. According to Hilary Putnam, innateness hypothesis refers to a linguistic theory of language acquisition which holds that the least some knowledge about the language exists in human at birth. Putnam supported Chomsky's theory of universal grammar in innateness hypothesis. This hypothesis targets the facts about a. Complexity of human language system. As humans, the most used relied form of communication is verbal, which is one of the most complex due to the large number of evolutionary processes of the psychological changes. B. Universality of human language acquisition. Universality of human language acquisition is a pattern that occurs systematically across natural languages, potentially for all of them. And C. The facility that children demonstrate in acquiring these systems. And last but not the least, the comparative performance of adults in attempting the same tasks.
Now let's let's move on with language acquisition process, where the overview and the process will be tackled.
Overview. Universal grammar is a theory in linguistics that proposes the existence of an innate, biologically based set of rules and principles that underlies the structure of all human languages. The theory of universal grammar suggests that the process of learning a new language is facilitated by the presence of an innate set of rules and principles that guide the acquisition process. The human brain has a built-in language acquisition device that allows it to learn and process language efficiently and effectively. Some researchers argue that the theory provides a useful framework for understanding how language is learned and acquired, while others argue that it oversimplifies the complex and multifaceted nature of language learning. Overall, the theory of universal grammar is an important and influential concept in the field of linguistics, and it continues to be an area of active research and study. This table shows the stages of language and communication development. Stage 1, from 0 to 3 months of age, reflexive communication. Stage 2, from 3 to 8 months of age, reflexive communication, interest in others. Stage 3, 8 to 12 months of age, intentional communication, social ability. Stage 4, 12 to 18 months, first words. Stage 5, 18 to 24 months of age, simple sentences of 2 words. Stage 6, 2 to 3 years of age, sentences of 3 or more words. Stage 7, 3 to 5 years of age, complex sentences, has conversations.
Good morning, ma'am. My name is Clarence Jeline Lambo Fortunado, and I will be giving to you the language acquisition process. The universal grammar processes or language acquisition processes that if human beings are brought up under the normal conditions, not those extreme sensory deprivation, they will always develop language with a certain properties. Examples, distinguishing nouns and verbs, distinguishing nouns from verbs, or distinguishing the function of words from contents of words. We also have the Universal Grammar or UG model of language acquisition claims that a child's mind possesses universal principles that always apply to language and variable parameters that have different settings in different languages. So this means that the language is depending on where the child has grew up, where he first learned how to speak, because this is where he acquires his language. So the language, as said here, is applied to a language and a variable of parameters that have different settings in different languages. So if you're from a different setting, you have a different language. For example, I am living here in Alamada. I have a different language because I will be using Ilonggo, and in Kabakan, I will be using Tagalog because some of the students don't understand my first language, so I have to adjust. So different settings, different languages. That is language acquisition processes. That's all. Thank you.
Good day, everyone. Hi, my name is Princess Malayhaay Palaguyan, and today I will be talking about the examples of universal hypothesis. As what is being said earlier, universal hypothesis is about an innate knowledge. For example, studies have shown that young children are able to learn and acquire language skills quickly and effortlessly, even in the absence of explicit instruction or modeling. This suggests that the brain has a natural predisposition to learn language, and that this ability is present from an early age. A native speaker of a language who is an adult possesses knowledge that he could not have acquired through listening to example of speech. Since this knowledge is not based on his observation of the outside world, it must originated from some aspect of his own thinking. Take the following two sentences. Is the program that is on television any good? And is the program that on television is good? A native English speaker can tell the first sentence is possible and the second is not. He knows in some sense that the is that is shifted to the beginning of a sentence in a question comes out of the main clause, rather than the subordinate clause. But how could he have learned this bit of English trivia? He may have heard the phrase like, the program is good, the program that is on television is good, and is the program good? And others throughout his life. None of these demonstrate a violation of the rule. Rather, they inform him on what he is permitted to say rather than what is prohibited. The rule can be demonstrated to exist only by concocting an ungrammatical sentence that would never occur in real life. Is the program that on television is good? Or by giving a grammatical analysis. But these are the kinds of information that the child learning his first language precisely does not have available to him. If native speakers find the sentence ungrammatical, their judgment must be based on something other than their experience of the word. The remaining possibilities is that it is derived from some property of the human mind that they all share.
A second example from English is the well-known pair, John is eager to please and John is easy to please. On the surface, the two sentences seems to have the same structure, but looked at more closely, their underlying structures differ in that in the first John is claimed to please other people, and the second, other people are claimed to please John. The sentences of English that the speaker has heard may have included, Mary is eager, this is easy, is John eager to please, and so on, none of which differentiate the two structures.
Although it is possible that an adult would explain the distinction to the child, or that a particular aspect of the situation would make it obvious, such unavoidable coincidence cannot explain why kids go through the same stages of becoming eager or easy to please and become successful at around the same age. If the youngest did not learn the differences from the input, he or she must go through some mental process. Therefore, both examples use the same defense, known as the poverty of the stimulus, to demonstrate how the infant already understands things about language that he could not have learned from outside sources and how significant language features are not necessarily teachable. And then we have here the fourth example. That's how you say it and how does you say it.
Geoffrey Sampson maintains that universal grammar theories are not falsifiable and are therefore pseudo-scientific theory. He argues that the grammatical rules linguists possess are simply post hoc observations about existing languages rather than predictions about what is possible in the language. Similarly, Jeffrey Ellman argues that the unlearnability of languages assumed by universal grammar is based on too strict or worst-case model of grammar that is not in keeping with any actual grammar. In keeping with these points, James Herford argues that the postulate of a language acquisition device, or LAD, essentially amounts to the trivial claim that languages are learned by humans and thus that the LAD is less a theory than an explanandum looking for theories. For instance, Morten Christensen and Nick Chatter have argued that the relatively fast-changing nature of language would prevent the slower-changing genetic structures from ever catching up, undermining the possibility of a genetically hardwired universal grammar. In addition, it has been suggested that people learn about probabilistic patterns of word distributions in their language rather than hard and fast rules. It has also been proposed that the poverty of the stimulus problem can be largely avoided if we assume that children employ similarity-based generalization strategies in language learning, generalizing about the usage of new words from similar words that they already know how to use. Michael Ramscar has suggested that when children erroneously expect an ungrammatical form that then never occurs, the repeated failure of expectation serves as a form of implicit negative feedback that allows them to correct their errors over time. This implies that word learning is a probabilistic, error-driven process that rather than a process of fast mapping as many nativists assume. Finally, in the domain of field research, the Peraha language is claimed to be a counterexample to the basic tenets of universal grammar. This research has been primarily led by Daniel Everett, a former Christian missionary. Among other things, this language is alleged to lack all evidence for recursion, including embedded clauses, as well as quantifiers and color terms. Some other linguists have argued, however, that some of these properties have been misanalyzed and that others are actually expected under current theories of universal grammar.
That would be all for our report. Thank you.